the ultimate. I think about the Word of God, which is the ultimate nuggets of gold in terms of richness for direction and for life. But the experiences that you shared of your own with us last week, of the things that you've learned, both good as well as those things where maybe you came up short in some areas, but you've learned from those experiences. And because of the fact that you love your family and you have a love for other people, that if there's an opportunity to share the nuggets that you've learned of wisdom from life's experiences, that you would do that. And I appreciate so much the copies that Bill, Joe, Tom, Dave, and others have provided. It is so great. And if any of you want to share yours and forward it to me, that'd be great, because I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all of your inputs. I'm going to reformat it so there's continuity between all of them and reflect it, where it comes from you guys individually. I'm going to put it into a summary. And the reason why I think it's valuable is because after we finish with this particular study here, the things that you're sharing are life-changing. There's no question about it. And so I'm going to put it all together, reformat it, and then send it back to you guys. And if you'd like to share it with your loved ones or with someone else, they have something they can refer to. And it's a reflection of the inputs that you have provided. Very, very good. So I'd like to go back and reference some of these things that you had sent to me throughout the week. But before we do that, I want to give an opportunity for anyone else there who's present that might not have sent their list of things, of areas that they may want to share this morning as we get started. And so let's begin there. Is there anything that we didn't cover last week that's on your list that you'd like to cover this week and today?
I started listening to a Jordan Peterson video, and I greatly admire the guy. He had 4 things, and I listened to 3. I hadn't finished listening to it. But anyway, he talked about the importance of having a dream or vision. He says people drink alcohol or abuse drugs, really focused on alcohol, and said that the reason for that, particularly among young people, is to avoid responsibility. You get an alcoholic and you can, you're medicating yourself, but responsibility is hard, it's challenging, it's no fun. And so if you drink, you have a reason to avoid responsibility, but take responsibility, but have a dream, have a vision for yourself. The second thing is exercise, particularly weightlifting. He says that the brain is a very demanding organ, and you need to nurture it. If without that, you will experience cognitive decline. And so have regular exercise, but particularly strength building. I think particularly for guys, he didn't say this, but as we age, everyone listen to Colbert Bailey?
Lifting a beer, isn't that exercise?
I think 12 ounces at a time, yeah. 2 pounds, 3 pounds. Anyway, anyone listen to Colbert Bailey was a guy famous years ago. He had the Fit or Fat, the Target diet. He talked about when he was a kid, he was in college and exercised during college, and he had his body shape and it was fine. He got out of school, he started working, his routine changed because he wasn't able to exercise as much, but he was doing great. And then he hits 30 and bam, he just starts putting on the weight. He hadn't changed a thing, but he started putting on weight, couldn't understand it. What had happened was his body composition was changing from muscle, burning calories, to fat, burning fewer calories. He didn't look different, didn't really feel different, but the body had changed. I'll say, in addition, fat puts off estrogen, muscle puts off testosterone. So we want testosterone, right? So anyway, you have a regular exercise routine, and then the point following that is have a routine. Your body thrives on routine. Have a time to get up at that time. have a time to go to bed at that time. Just have a anyway. There's a 4.2 somewhere out there. I'll see if I can't summarize that and forward it to you, Chris.
Ken, I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's right.
Ken, that is excellent. There is excellent wisdom there. And it's interesting that you hit those points because they are also reflective in what Bill had forwarded. They're also reflected in a number of things that Tom forwarded as well. So, Ken, if you can please summarize that in writing and just send it to me, I'll add it to this booklet that I'm going to be putting together where I reformat everything. Yeah, just take credit for it. That's okay.
No, just a messenger.
Yeah, but that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Ken.
I like it.
Any other insights on any points that Ken made this morning?
Well, the only thing I'd add to that, Ken, is that I think hydration turns out to be sort of the universal requirement for a healthy body. I know what made me think of that is how much water your brain needs to function effectively. And so if we forget to hydrate ourselves on a regular basis, we're fighting against ourselves. So just general comment. I think hydration is always implied in a good health message. Yeah.
Joe, that's a great point. As a matter of fact, that happens to be in Bill's 4th bullet point under behavior, where Bill says drink 8 to 12 ounces of water before you do anything else.
Bingo.
This provides vital hydration, good for your skin, joints, eyes, and aids in digestion of your breakfast. So from his perspective, Bill, I can envision you rolling out of bed and there you go. You're drinking already. That's pretty awesome.
Hydrate.
Okay. Anything else, guys? What else?
Well, exercise was on my list,
I'm sure it
and
was.
it was under the subheading of loving yourself, which was 3rd on my list. Love God, love others, love yourself. Just like Jesus says, all the law can be summed up in this: love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love others as yourself. So loving yourself means taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others, so that you can love and serve the Lord. You know, if I'm a fat, blubbering, drunk idiot, I'm no good to anybody.
You and Joe both talked about that last week about loving yourself, and I think it's
Yeah.
really important.
You gotta
Yeah.
take care of yourself,
You
so
don't
you
hear
can take
that
care of
much, or
others.
you don't think about that much, but
Yeah.
if you don't like yourself, you're not gonna be able to like anybody else, or
Yeah.
help anybody else.
And not only that, my wife deserves the best husband she could have. I mean,
Yeah.
all of that, she deserves the very
Amen.
best. So
Hey,
it takes a lot of work to keep me at that, close to that level. So that includes exercise and diet and right thinking and research and Fridays, you know, feeding my soul with you guys. And
At
all
your
goes
point,
into
we
it.
owe taking care of ourselves to other people.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, guys, scripture says, you know, we're the temple of the Holy Spirit to take care of your bodies. It is very, very important.
Mhm.
And just as you noted, as men get older, typically the testosterone levels begin to drop. But one of the ways to address that, and it's very, very important for a host of different reasons, is to exercise.
Mhm.
Muscle mass begins to decline if you're not using those muscles all the time. And so even if it's light lifting, if it's 15 minutes a day or whether it's an hour a day, but doing something is vitally important as opposed to doing nothing. It's interesting because as typically as men or women get older, they seek comfort more. See, it's more comfortable to seek comfort. And when you exercise, it's not comfortable. It's never comfortable to exercise because you're pushing your body. And there's discomfort, frankly, when you exercise. But the results of that investment of time every day are incredible. It is incredible. And as you age, it helps keep your muscle tone, endurance. The other thing that Tom said is, you know, your wife, you should provide the best to her as well. And exercise does it. Joe, maybe it was you, or maybe Ken said the benefit to the brain as well of exercise,
Oh, yeah.
critically important.
It all works together. You know how God talks about the church, he uses the human body as an example, you know.
Yeah.
It all works together. Yeah.
Yeah, very well.
You made some good videos a while back, Chris, on exercising and about your routine. They were good. Yeah.
It helps. It helps, guys. What else? What else do you have?
Well, I put down, it was actually my number 6. I expanded. It was hard to get into. That's a pain in the butt. I just put that self-care is vital to your mental health. You know, it's you know, you touched on it. You can't be there for other people if you're not taking care of yourself first. You know, you use the analogy of being on an airplane, right? Where they tell you in case of an emergency, the
Put
mask
someone
come
else.
down,
Mm.
put your mask on first,
Yeah.
and then help the
Mm.
children and your wife and whoever else,
Good
because
lesson.
yeah, it's just a good life lesson, period. Like, you've got to be able to take care of yourself
Mhm.
Right.
before you're able to take care of others. And from the mental health standpoint, I'm dealing with something, that exact thing, right now, both mental and physical. You know, my wife, not the best with personal nutrition, and last week she went camping, and I went down there on Friday, and she was after work, and she was like on her deathbed. She was like deathly ill. It was
Oh,
awful.
dear.
Yeah, it was
While,
awful.
while camping.
While camping, she picked up a bug. I think it was like gastroenteritis or something.
You know.
The problem was is that her potassium level, she had some blood work done a couple weeks before that, and her potassium levels were low. They were within range, but they were low.
Mm.
But what this bug did was then exacerbated that whole situation. So she wasn't taking in any nutrients, and then whatever nutrients she was taking in, she was just throwing them out.
Mhm.
So by the time we got home, come, you know, Monday, Tuesday, like she's getting a little bit better day by day, but she's still dead to the world. It hasn't happened to work all week.
Wow.
So she called the advice nurse, tell her to go into the clinic. She does that, and then they're like, "You need to go to the emergency room." So Thursday night, I got off work, and that's where we were.
So last night.
What's today?
Friday.
Okay, Wednesday night.
Wednesday.
So I was like, it's been a long week.
That's a- like a little, yeah.
It's my first week at my new branch. You know,
Oh, it's good.
it's been a lot. So
Boards.
it does, yeah. But anyway, long story short, you know, it was self-care is what got her there,
Mhm.
or the lack thereof.
Mhm.
And here I am trying to, you know, do a job, take care of my wife, take care of my son, take care of our dog, you know, I'm trying to do all these things, and I'm able to, because I'm taking care of myself.
There you go.
And meanwhile, I've got my poor wife, and then yesterday was our 10-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so just keep on keeping on. Yeah.
10 years. Good job.
So it's been a whirlwind of a week, but man,
But that didn't
self-care. You gotta eat right. You gotta get your 8 hours of sleep. You gotta drink the water. You gotta get 30 minutes of exercise a day, and you know, whatever you gotta do, you gotta make it a priority, because your body is a temple, and you know, I've actually been slacking on that as well, and I've been meaning to reintroduce it into my daily routine, just trying to figure out where that's gonna go. Because
Yeah.
definitely had no place for it this week.
Yeah.
For it.
Well, especially as
Yeah.
your routine changes too.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because the new job
Yeah.
throws everything off.
yes, and I've been finding that I'm a 5 a.m. guy, and I've been finding that since I started working again, I've been more like a 6:30 guy. So that hour and a half, I'm either losing time of self-care with my exercise, because I take my dog on runs in the morning, or I'm losing time with God, because that's my time when the house is quiet, and I go downstairs, and that's when I'm reading my Bible, and which is also, in my opinion, a part of self-care as well, is that daily devotional time with God,
Yeah.
because that's just for your mind and spirit.
Absolutely.
You know, mind, body, and spirit all rolled into one there. So
Mhm.
anyway, didn't mean to take over the.
No, that's important.
No, that's good. That's very good, Scott. Just think of, again, these are vital nuggets. And as young adults, if they're able to embrace exactly what you said, what we've been talking about at an early age, as they move on into their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and beyond, they'll have a much more productive life. When you can do things physically, it helps you mentally in so many ways. And the benefit is it's not to you, but obviously it's to other people as well. So that's a great nugget to share. Thank you, Scott. What else, guys?
I think as I think through this, as Scott was talking, I'm thinking that maybe it's not a bad idea to remind ourselves that a couple of overriding realities of all of this is to establish a level of discipline and intentionality in your life, to do these things for the right reasons and develop a rhythm in your life where you have room for all the things that you need to do. And I think that's probably, if you look at people that have a pretty balanced life, you'll find out it didn't happen by accident. They did it.
So I'm really glad you said that. It's critically important. Bill, do you have your sheet there in front of you?
Yes,
Can you go to number 3? And could you share that with all the guys, what you've written there in on number 3?
on habits.
Yes.
Well, I said it was important to, when I'm talking to my kids, actually, I love them, but I want them to be the best version of themselves they can be too. So that's the reason that I share some of these things with my kids and grandkids, is that I want to pass on things that have worked for me with them. But anyway, I wrote down about habits. I said it's important to establish good habits. Be consistent, be disciplined. They will determine your behavior and ultimately your character. I said, some of the habits that I would suggest is that read and study the Bible some each day. Read one important biography every year. Exercise 20 or 30 minutes every day.
Do something.
Get 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. Give to charity and buy from local stores. I like to buy local.
And none of that is rocket science.
No, I know. It's just,
Yeah, it's not, but when that's coming from the senior guy of our group, guys, he's lived some fantastic years. Okay.
Mhm.
And Joe, when you just completed what you shared in terms of discipline, I think of habits. By the way, oftentimes people refer to bad habits. Guess what? There's also good habits.
Yeah.
And good habits can be formed just as well as bad habits can be formed. It's important to keep that in context. And so if you don't have a good habit, as Scott referenced earlier, getting up at 5 o'clock, running with his dog in the morning, or spending time with God, and you're beginning to slip all of a sudden from 5 o'clock to 6:30 a.m., you're missing that 90 minutes in there.
Bill, I like your other one that you've shared before about make your bed.
oh, well.
Yes.
You've accomplished at least one thing in the day, and that's
Get
Yeah.
the day
leads
out
to
right.
others. All right, I
That's
did something. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
No, I make my bed. I think of you.
I got that from an Navy admiral that was actually.
All right.
But we're starting to get a picture here, guys, of all the inputs here of behavior, discipline, being disciplined. There's a lot of cross currents here saying the same thing. So that's very, very good. What else do you have?
Where are we at?
Anything.
Anything you want to share, guys?
Oh,
It can come from any of you.
Joe, you mentioned the two things, establish the level of discipline, and what was the other?
Well, intentionality.
Intentionality, thank you.
Yeah. I've mentioned to this group many times, I think in the past, that if you can develop the ability to determine the difference between what's important and what's urgent, you'll do yourself a big favor. Because what we find in our life is we respond, unfortunately, to things that are urgent but not important. And we sometimes avoid the things that are important because we get distracted. So just a habit, for as long as we're on the subject of habits, maybe developing some permission within the way you manage yourself to take the time to determine what's really important versus what's urgent, and then respond accordingly. And stress levels will diminish rapidly, and your productivity and your ability to develop in a deliberate and an effective way will increase dramatically. So just a thought.
Yeah. Remember this, guys, and I appreciate you sharing that, Joe. If everything's important, then nothing's important. But prioritizing every day those things that are more important and work your way down is critically important. Joe, on your 5th point on your sheet was be a leader. That was your 5th point. Can you talk a little bit more about developing and grooming your character? What does that look like, Joe?
Well, that's that I can do that in 2 minutes or five months. So let me now developing your character really is about loving yourself. It really essentially goes back to the beginning. Love yourself, be honest, be straightforward, tell the truth, and develop the kinds of things that make you love yourself and the kind of things that allow you to be vulnerable, be open, be honest, because what we know is vulnerability develops trust, and trust creates influence. And as a leader, people get confused about leadership. I think I've shared with you before, leadership has nothing to do with title or rank or position. It has everything to do with the influence and the impact you have on others around you. And there's probably no more important leadership role that any of us have as it relates to governing ourselves and governing our families. So leadership is really a key characteristic to having a balanced life and glorifying God and being everything He's made you to be. So think about being a leader. And if you needed a target or something to focus on as it relates to the thousands of decisions you have to make every day, if you think of yourself as a leader, my experience has been that you will make much better decisions and you will have a much better focus on what's important to you.
Joe, under the topic of leadership, which you described very well right now, you also point demonstrate courage and humility.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? How would you counsel a younger person that you're mentoring, your grandchildren, children, anyone that is interested in leadership? What does this look like?
Sure. Well, interestingly enough, humility and courage are two sides of the same coin. It takes a lot more courage to be humble than to be proud. Okay. So we know that frankly, I'll give you a little bit of my view, but I think original sin is pride. And so I believe that to the extent that we can live our lives based on a humble focus. Now, humility doesn't mean weakness at all. Frankly, it doesn't mean weakness at all. In fact, it is quite the contrary. It takes quite a bit of strength to be a humble person, to listen, to understand, to not get ahead of yourself, to not feel like you're more important than other people, and generally be open and honest and loving and caring. That's a contract you can have with yourself that will feed your ability to influence others. And as we always say, speak the gospel, and if you have to, use words. I mean, if you show up as an individual that is full of love rather than full of judgment, you send a very, very strong message. And humility is a big part of that. Humble people have a way of being unbelievably authentic and genuine and respected by all. So humility, it's been my experience that anyone who argues with humility is focused on pride, not a humility. So it takes a lot of courage to take a stand. And I think about it in terms of a biblical context. It takes a lot of courage and humility for us to take a stand for the Lord in this culture. Let me tell you, that is not an easy thing to do, because in many quarters we're the bad guys. So I think being humble is just being straightforward and honest.
That's great advice. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Great advice for those. Tom, when I was looking at your list of top 5 words of wisdom, under love yourself, you put laugh. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Laugh. Don't take myself so seriously.
Good point.
Laughter's the best medicine is the old phrase. I don't know, it's not the best medicine, but it's good medicine.
It is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta let your hair down and just relax. It's gonna be okay. Okay, I fell down, I hurt myself. I bet that looked funny to somebody. It's hurting me physically, but look at it from another perspective. We can always, not always, but most of the time we can find positive in negative situations if you look hard enough.
Seems like you're saying, it helps put things in perspective.
Yeah, I would say.
I'm not
so.
that important.
Yeah.
That it's okay, and
Mhm.
in the bigger scheme of things, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, our society, you know, big, tough, stoic men, and we're out there leading the charge, and rah, 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 and you don't see that kind of guy, you know, you didn't see Mel Gibson in Braveheart laughing very often, right? He's just out there kicking butt. Rah.
That's a good movie.
But you know, in context, right, he had a very definite mission, so we saw a window of his life, and
Mhm.
when he's not on that mission, when we don't have to be as serious leading the charge, and we can sit back and relax, it's good to realize, it's like, oh, thank you, God, you got me through that, let's relax, let's break bread together, let's tell stories, let's laugh, let's enjoy each other's company. It's like, it's about enjoying life. And
This-
if you can't laugh, you're not really enjoying yourself,
You gotta like.
are you? Yeah, lighten up, Francis.
That's the hardest one for me. I get so focused on tasks
Yeah,
and all these tasks, you know, I have my to-do list of 800 things I gotta get done today. And so I just keep pounding away at it. And Dorothy says, "Where are you? I haven't seen you all day. You know,
I don't know.
sit down here, talk to me, play a game with
Tell
me,
me a joke.
play a game with me." And I go, "Play a game." I don't
This is so critically important, and Tom, I'm really glad you put this in here. And let me share with you why I believe it's so critically important to be cognizant of this point, to share with younger men coming up. As men, none of us want to fail. Success is very important to us, whether it's in the office, in the business world, or whether it's with people or friends that you're with. Men do not want to fail. They just don't. But you know what? Failure is a part of life. It's going to happen. There are going to be times when you fall short, when failure does occur. But it's not something that any man desires. And people handle failure differently. I always say that failure is just an event. It's an event. It's an event to learn from, but it's not permanent. It's just an event. And oftentimes, I can certainly relate to this, especially in my younger years. When I fell short in an area, gosh, did I feel bad? Did I beat myself up? And I felt so terrible. I didn't feel good about it at all, about falling short. But I learned over time how important it is to laugh at yourself, give yourself some grace, and to learn from your experience, because it doesn't matter how old you are, you're going to fall short at times in certain areas. And if you have the right perspective, which is being able to laugh at yourself and understand that failure is just an event, it's not permanent, something to learn from, you will be far better off recovering and moving forward and learning from that shortfall, as opposed to taking it personal and beating yourself up and being unable to laugh at yourself. I just had a conversation with a colleague relevant to this earlier this week. And so it's laughing at yourself is good medicine, Tom, going forward. So thank you for sharing that. Joe, I can see you. This is teeing something up for you.
Yeah, I wanted to offer the group a simple way to look at failure, because Chris, you're spot on. It is not only an event, but it's a learning cycle. So I've kind of gotten used to thinking of the word fail, F-A-I-L, as meaning first attempt includes learning.
Yeah.
So life is nothing but a cycle of learning. And if you look at things in that respect and try to come away from a failure, if you will, with learning something, and do a postmortem on something that didn't work out, you'll be better off the next time.
Yeah. So this is great advice to give to a younger person growing up. Again, your grandchildren, children, loved ones, continue to move forward. Don't stay still, but continue to move forward. Tom, in your summary of point number 4, you wrote work is good. Now that's something that Gen Z, we hear about all the time, may not see work as being good, may not understand the value of work, but you say that work is good. Why do you say that?
Nothing worth, I mean, everything worth having is worth striving for to attain.
Hmm.
If I run a race and win a gold medal, all the work that I put in to train for it, to prepare it, to be ready to run that race, all that hard work and effort makes that gold medal really worth something. If I don't train, if I just wake up and saunter into the race, I don't even run it, and they give me a medal because I paid the fee, what value is that medal compared to all the work that I should have done?
So are you saying, would it be accurate to say effort is the
Yep,
same thing as
effort,
work here in
Yes,
this case?
agreed.
Well, it's it's the American way. You kind of, you get what you earn what you work for. I mean, it isn't like socialism. And
Yeah, no, it's,
work is good. It
I was
is.
thinking about Garden of Eden paradise. There was work.
yep.
Sure, there will be when we go to heaven too.
Because what are you gonna do? Just sit around and eat
Yeah.
your free donuts every day? What-
Play my little harp,
Yeah.
lay on the cloud.
Yeah, you don't stay strong by sitting.
Yeah, that's true. As a matter of fact, there's a number of references in Proverbs about the value of work
Mhm.
and about the ant and the sluggard. We can learn from them. I mean, there's a lot of references to the value of work. Very, very important. Tom, you're right. A rich life does not require lots of money.
I have a good example of this, and some of you might have been there at my 50th birthday party. My wife put on a surprise party and had lots of food. The house was full of people. Turning 50, I thought it was this big deal. And I just remember stopping everybody to pray over the food, to get started. And I just remember looking around, all these people are all here to honor me. God has blessed me with all these friends. I just felt like the richest man in the world. Like, look at God, look at all these people. I can't believe this. I just felt like the wealthiest, richest, luckiest guy in the world, having all these friends and family around. And that was not money. It was material, right? But the physical people were there, but it's more about
Yeah.
the spirit, why everyone was there and the camaraderie that we all
Spirit
had.
of appreciation.
I just felt like the richest man in the world.
Pretty important, Tom. As a matter of fact, one more thing you say, which is a value for a young person to learn. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Have you ever shared that with someone else, guys, with someone younger than you? And what does that mean? There's no such thing as a free lunch.
You gotta earn it.
Somebody had to pay for that lunch.
Yeah.
Maybe I got invited to a free lunch. Someone else paying for it. It's like I read this Catholic book a few months ago about appreciation and the Eucharist and the bread of life. But anyway, the synopsis was, appreciate every gift. So like an egg. I take an egg out of the refrigerator. I crack it, I fry it, I eat it. Big deal. It's just an egg. But wait, what did it take for that egg to get there? There's a chicken. There's a farmer. There's, the people
Transport
picking the
workers.
eggs. There's the transport, the trucker. There's the people in the distribution center. There's the grocery store people. There's people putting it in the carton. There's electricity that keeps my refrigerator cold. There's my job that pays the bill. That all of this goes in to that one egg. And with that perspective, I just appreciate that simple egg so much more.
Yeah, that's a good illustration, Tom. I think of the reference you make, there's no free lunch. In our culture today, in advertising, and you see it on social media, you see it on TV, different methods and so forth. People are advocating or marketing shortcuts to success all the time. Okay. And if you've heard the phrase, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. Okay. But hard work and patience is part of the formula to success, whether it's financial or otherwise. But those are the building blocks to long-term success. It's discipline, hard work, behavior. And the younger a person can figure that out and embrace it and understand that, and have those things shape their lives going forward, they are going to be far better off than all the rich, quick schemes that are out there today, all the free lunches that are, there's a lack of truth in advertising oftentimes,
Oftentimes.
a lot of times. But hard work and discipline, good behavior is so critically important. What else do you guys?
Think of the freedom we have now because of the hard work Jesus did on the cross. Talk about hard work. Now, the God of the universe, he could have just like snapped his fingers and made us all obey, and here's your perfect world, and we're robots, and everything's great, and we get it. Okay. He didn't. That wasn't going to work. We wouldn't appreciate it without the hard work of Christ on the cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder sometimes, why doesn't God take the easy way? I mean, he could have said, okay, I'll forgive you. I don't need a sacrifice. But he said, these are the rules and we're going to follow them. I will follow them. I think it's what he's saying.
Yeah. I go back to the gold medal in the race. It's like, it's not worth it if they just hand it to me. But if I do the hard work to earn it, then it's worth it.
Think about Chris's message about advertising. Sometimes we hear the line, you get this, you deserve it.
Oh yeah.
Right. That drives me off the wall. Because that sort of thinking is just gonna, well, what's it gonna do to a person?
That's a slippery slope.
Well, Ken, I can tell you what it's done. Credit card debt now has just surpassed $1 trillion.
Personal.
Think about that for a minute. Credit card debt just surpassed $1 trillion. The interest on credit card debt, if you're carrying a balance, is well above 20%. Scott, you know that, working for a bank. This is tragic. And once you're there, you're in quicksand. You're in quicksand. And if you haven't learned all the things we're talking about now as a young person, out of the love of your heart, you want your loved ones to understand these things, because if they don't, they're going to be in quicksand. It's collateral damage. It's in our culture today. It's so unfortunate, but what we're talking about is so real in making the difference in the life of a person if they embrace these nuggets we're talking about last week and today. I tell you, I'm just so passionate and so have such a high level of conviction to convey this message, because if it's not understood out of ignorance, lack of knowledge, or just a choice not to pursue it, you're going to end up in quicksand. You're going to be part of the millions and millions who are carrying a lot of credit card debt where they're drowning. And that has a negative impact with respect to their health, their spiritual situation with God, their overall well-being. You don't want that to happen to your loved ones. So critically important. You know, one of the things that Dave Bohr talks about, it's his number 4 point. He's not with us this morning, but it says, have a life mission and purpose. Product will be joy and hope. Written goals, 2 years, 5 years, and 10-year plans where you want your life to be and how you purpose to get there. You know, I referenced this last week. I'll say it again because Joe has said it so many times about the value of being intentionality. But when you have written goals and you have a plan where you want to be, and you measure yourself a long time, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get there. Because without any kind of plan or being purposeful in your life when you wake up each day, whether it's at 5 o'clock or whatever time, if you don't have a discipline or a routine, you're like a ship without a rudder. A person is like a ship without a rudder in the ocean. And they're going to be bouncing. The waves are going to be just directing them all kinds of different ways. They're going to be out of control, and they can have very little impact, beginning with themselves in terms of being productive and useful, and then influencing those around them as well. And so I like what he says about having a life mission and purpose is critically important. I've said this before that, guys, we're here on mission. We're not citizens. The Bible says we're citizens of heaven. We're citizens of heaven. Peter says that. And so to understand that we're here temporarily puts greater focus on where we are here on mission. You have 1,440 minutes every day. That's all you get. It's like sand going between your fingers. So if you use them wisely, awesome. If it slips between your fingers, it's unfortunate. You get a new set the next day if you're fortunate to get another day. But what you lose today or yesterday or the day before, that chapter's closed. It's done. And, you know, our grandchildren, children, and loved ones, they're getting older every single day. And so the earlier we can help shape and influence these nuggets of gold that we're talking about, to help them embrace them early, will provide for a greater life, a greater probability for success than if they don't know these things. And we see our culture today, we see millions of people who are floundering, who are struggling because the things that we're talking about here, they're not embracing, they're not doing these things. This is all part of God's recipe for life. And guys, we are the change agents. He's empowered us to be the change agents, to influence those, beginning with our family and then spreading out from there. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Your reference to the boat and the rudder, and Scott said something that bears repeating about, I'm not sure you said this exactly, but you know, our world says just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Don't ruffle up the waters. Just, you know, let's just all get along and just go with the flow.
Swim downstream.
Yeah, so that's easy if you have no rudder, if you have no purpose, just floating along whichever way the wind blows. That's not intentionality. That's not what Joe's talking about. You got to have a rudder, because sometimes that flow ain't where I want to go. And I can't avoid that flow without a strong rudder and a purpose.
Well, Chris has shared, you know, he's got a daily outline and a weekly and a yearly. He
Yeah, that's
shared, you know, the things that he kind of,
Yep.
whether it's exercise or what's going to happen 1, 2, 3 during the day. He's had some wonderful things that he shared, that how he really kind of manages his life and his time.
You've got a strong rudder.
Oh, man.
You know,
Thanks, Bill. It certainly helps, guys. It certainly helps. Anything else that you guys have on your list that hasn't been shared so far?
Well, I just want to touch on the work thing and the purpose thing real quick. You know, the work thing is, you know, the work thing is biblical, right? Because we have a Sabbath. What's a Sabbath from what? What's the Sabbath for? From work. So it's already written that, you know, that we have a purpose to work for whatever reason you want to think of. I mean, there's a reason why we have a day of rest. It's not a day of resting from us doing nothing all week long. Even the weekend itself is a man-made creation, you know. Work was a 6-day a week deal back in the day, not 5 with holidays.
Now we're trying to get more than 3.
Yeah, we're trying to get
less.
yeah, exactly. You know, I don't necessarily approve the 10 or 12-hour work days, but let's keep that within reason. But and then as for the purpose, you know, I really like the idea of writing down, having a 1-year, 5-year, 10-year kind of plan and writing that down for your own life. It's interesting because we already do that in corporate America. So when I go to work, I've got 5 employees. They all have individual development plans, and we're working on what, you know, things we need to build on, strengths and weaknesses and development and things we want to gear towards. And of course, what their future goals are. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a good question.
Do you still want to be a banker? Do you want to be a manager? Do you want to get into business banking? Do you want to get into private client banking? Where is it that you want to go? Cool. How do we get there? Let's write this stuff down, and then let's look at it once a month, you know, once every 2 weeks, a couple times a quarter. Let's look at it and see what progress have we made towards reaching this ultimate goal. And it's like, okay, if it works in the business world, why would we not apply it to our own lives at home?
Exactly.
Good point, Scott. Excellent
I always hated
point.
that when they had me
Yeah.
do that.
We all hate it.
Yeah.
That's why we don't do it at home.
That's right. I
Yeah.
hated it at work too.
Yeah.
And
That's a
I'm
solid
gonna
point.
retire. Who cares?
My
what
boss
I
used to ask me, you know, Bank of America back in the day, he'd ask me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, in your chair. And yeah, he loved that answer. And he was like, okay, how do we get here? And I said, when do you retire? Can you get out?
That's awesome, Scott. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, with the remaining minutes we have, I want to go back to Bill's outline here. And Bill, for the time of, for the sake of time, I'm just going to hit some of these points you wrote down. One of them is it's in his part 4. Show up on time every day. 10 minutes early is on time. Never, ever be late. Allow for contingencies and always give yourself a buffer in case life happens. Terrific wisdom there. There's nothing more frustrating. And when I'm with a person who doesn't have that sense of urgency, as you've written here, and when you show up late, it's just not good. So learning that young is very important. Show up for work or school every day, even if you don't feel 100%. Other people are counting on you, relying on you, and depending on you to do your job. No one is indispensable. And if you don't show up, someone else can and will take your place.
Glad to have.
If you accept an invitation to an event, show up. And if you can't make it, call and cancel. But just don't show up without any apology or explanation.
Common courtesy, right? That's
Common
good.
courtesy.
But it's becoming more common to do that.
Yeah,
Just
what do
not
they
to-
call it? Ghosting? Is that
Ghosting.
ghosting? Yeah.
I've had people with appointments for having an interview. And
Well, what's a ghost? That's a dead person. That's dead. Ghosting.
Well, they're dead to me now.
Exactly.
He also writes under character, a good reputation can be tarnished, even destroyed by a single impulsive act or deed and leave you without a shred of good character. However, the dark moments in your life will last only as long as necessary for God to accomplish his purpose in us, Charles Stanley. But, impulsiveness, and as a matter of fact, in my list, I talk about avoid impulsiveness at all costs. Avoid it. Because the outcome of impulsiveness, there's far more negatives than positive about being impulsive. Don't let your compliments go to your head or insults go to your heart. That's interesting. People do not remember what you said or what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. Isn't that true? Isn't that true?
Yep.
The other things that, Bill, that you said you convey to your children and grandchildren, and I believe all of us can relate to, something that you convey verbally is, I love being your dad or grandfather or great-grandfather.
Great grandfather, wow.
Hearing them,
Wow.
but hearing them saying that, hearing that is critically important. How often did we strive as young people to hear from our dads that they love you verbally? Oftentimes with men, it's a machismo thing. You can't say that because it's a reflection of softness. I say bull to that type of thought. And I feel strongly about that. You hug, you love, you tell your loved ones you love them. And any man who doesn't believe in that, this is just my personal conviction, you're less than a man. Because it's critically important as men to convey and communicate through our actions and through words how we love our loved ones. It's important to tell them that often. I believe in you. I forgive you. Don't ever give up.
Hang in there.
Sometimes it's best to say no. It's easy to say yes, guys. Easy to say yes. It's more challenging to say no. I'll always love you. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Be kind, and it doesn't make you weak. Bill, I love that. I love that summary that you wrote down here of conveying to your children, your grandchildren, and loved ones. Finally, he says, anything is possible. You can make a difference. You have a choice. That's a great question.
You have a choice.
You have a choice. I'm delighted to spend time with you. Your attitude can change any situation. I'm listening. I'm listening. Man, as you think you shall be, the way Bill wraps it up. So these are just fantastic nuggets of gold.
Did you send those out to the group or just?
What do you think about that, guys?
Beautiful. There's a whole book in this. Bill, you could write.
Well, yeah, in fact, I think once you get all this pulled together, Chris, maybe we need to publish this as the Friday morning men's group, you know?
Well, Joe, I'm gonna put it all together. I'll have it ready by next week. I'll have
Yeah.
everything reformatted.
Went to you.
Because all these things we've talked, by the way, there's more. Okay, we only covered just part of this.
Oh, yeah.
These things, again, are life changing. And I hope you, as I do, feel so passionate about wanting our loved ones, beginning with our family and then expanding outward, to listen and to give consideration to the things we talk about here, because if they embrace them, they will be different than the world that we see today, who's struggling. There's hardship, there's hate, there's anxiety, there's fear. And there's all kinds of medias conveying things to generate all those outcomes for a host of different reasons, most of them financial, okay? But if we want our loved ones to prosper, or friends who are looking for an answer who are struggling, these are the answers. It's all out of God's word, by the way.
Yeah.
It's biblically based. It's out of his word. It's truth. And you know, guys, the value of this is there's credibility behind what we're saying. You know why there's credibility? Because we've lived it.
Sure.
It's not like a young 20-year-old saying, hey, listen to all these things. Hey, buddy, you haven't lived it yet. Now, you might be fortunate to have been mentored and had a wonderful father and mother teach you these young things. And it's one thing to learn it and to read it from a book. It's a whole other thing to do that and experience success and failure, because the level of conviction and credibility goes up from there.
Chris, I like that summary, and I like how you communicated that, because we can't forget that when we're talking to the people that this is intended to focus on, they need a contrast. They need to understand the world that they're living in today and the world they're growing up in today is different than the world where we grew up. But these fundamental principles never change. They are as reliable today as they always were. The context has changed. The way we communicate's changed. And unfortunately, we've traded in our culture efficiency for accountability as it relates to technology, because a big part of the reason we have difficulties is because we don't have much face-to-face communication. It's easy to ghost when you hide behind an email or a text message, okay? So I like the feel of Bill's words, because I know from his heart, he's envisioning himself having face-to-face conversations about these items. And I'm the same way. So a lot of this needs to be, I believe, delivered in the context of people understanding the contrast. We grew up, those in this room, we grew up focused on responsibility, meeting objectives, being reliable. Kids today focus on being privileged and having and being treated as an elite individual, and the only thing that they use to keep score is how much money they have. So you have an enormous cultural enemy here in terms of the perspective they have. So we go back to God's word and we look at and we stand on the truth of the Bible, and we share with them a biblical worldview that so they can understand how these things will affect them in their lives. They're still going to make mistakes, but at least you have a halfway decent shot of letting them know that they got a chance.
There's a lot of entitlement today.
I still spend plenty of time dealing with people at all ages that need to hear this. So believe me, this need to communicate like we have these very important principles is life-changing for most people.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Excellent. Guys, anything else you'd like to say before we bring this to a close today?
I'm
I'm
just
gonna
thinking,
give you a Ron Petrie update real quick. if I
Oh,
can.
there we go.
good idea.
I talked to Joanne last night. I've been trying to see Ron for the last 2 weeks, and he is slipping pretty significantly. He's not eating at all hardly, and he sleeps the whole time. I tried to get over to see him to see if I could get to see him today, and Joanne said no. The time he only wakes up really is when the nurse is there. So guys, I think we need to really plug him into the prayers and keep him in mind. She says he's slipping rapidly. So
Okay,
there's a lady that
So,
spent 40
well,
years with people in hospice, so she would know. Anyway,
How is Joanne doing?
well, she's doing okay. She's, she's had plenty of time over the target here, so she understands what's going on and is able to probably deal with it. But she's looking at losing her husband probably. Well, I don't think there's any question that the way he's going, if you just put it on a trend line, he's probably gone by the end of the year and maybe by the end of the summer. I mean, who knows? That's God's choice, not ours. But the point is, it's difficult to see him. I'm going to try to see him again next week, but the only time he's awake is when the nurse is there. And she says that he doesn't want any visitors when the nurse is there. So it's one of these difficult situations to try to, and you can't talk to him on the phone because he's somewhat incoherent. So anyway, I don't want to
Joe, thank you
belabor
for
it,
sharing
but that's the update.
yeah, Joe, we appreciate you sharing that. We'll
Sure.
we'll close in prayer. Tom, I don't know if you're still recording or not, but what we'll do for next week, again, I'm going to summarize this, reformat everything, and I'm going to send it out to you guys early next week. Early next week, I will send it out. And when you receive it, please review it, look through it. And I think what I'd like to do is to give you guys a chance, if there's anything that you see in this complete summary of all the inputs. And by the way, if you've not provided anything to me, if you want to, please do so, and I'll add it into this summary that I'm going to put together here. But what I'd like to do is to conclude next Friday, and for you to have a chance to circle up anything that you might see that you want to make, that you may want to come back to address one more time before we bring this topic to a close at the end of next week. Okay?
Fair enough.
Cool.